Welcome to the Ranchonomics podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. All right, Josh Kerpan, welcome to the Ranchonomics podcast. Great to have you this morning. How are you?
I'm great, John. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Josh, I would like you, would you give a quick intro? We're going to talk about a business coaching program you've got going on that is very intriguing. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, we'll jump into that.
Yes, sir. Born and raised in Kenaston, Saskatchewan. So that's right about in the middle of Saskatchewan, Canada. For reference for any Americans, we're about 8 hours straight north of Billings, Montana, a little bit east. So went to university after high school, was told that that's what you got to do to be successful. So I went and got my business degree there, and I worked in the corporate world for all of about a year. And that was long enough to realize that wasn't going to work well for anybody. So I got out of that, and I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So got into a couple of my own businesses. I ran a painting business for a little while, and then started building houses, and then kind of got right into farming. My dad farmed growing up until about 1993, 1992 when he got out and got into politics. So I'm kind of the fourth generation farmer on our place, but there is about a decade and a half gap in between there. So we started from scratch, my wife and I, in 2009, and have grown the farm up to a pretty good spot. And now kind of venturing off into pursuing my passion and my purpose, which is being able to help other people set up their farms and ranches and businesses to enjoy life a little bit more and enjoy their business and their entrepreneurial journey. So,
fantastic. So tell me a little about the business you got going now, Kaizen Solutions. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so we were just talking if it's coaching or consulting, and it's definitely a little bit of both, I think. But the difference to me is that we're going to work together to solve problems, whatever that might be. But the idea is to transfer the skills of solving those problems over to my clients, so that they're not a client for me for a long time. Maybe that's a bad business decision, but that is really what we're in the business of, is growing people so they can grow their own businesses, not necessarily having to take the reins on all that. So it's based on the idea that most small business owners don't get into owning a business because they want to manage or run a business. They get into it because they're really good at something, they're really passionate about something, and they pursue that, and they start producing value for people. And if they're any good at it at all, then it kind of blows up to a point where they get a business on their hands or something that resembles a business. In reality, it's a job that they own. If they have a business, it owns them and they don't own the business. So the idea is being able to recognize that and put in place the systems to be able to turn your small business into a business that not only serves your customer, but serves you as the business owner.
Love it. And you have talked a little and gone through quite a personal transformation yourself in this journey. And I would love for you to talk about that. I am fascinated, by all topics leadership, and also by how that changes us and how we change that. So if you want to talk about that, I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
Yes, sir. Well, I guess I'll preface this whole discussion by saying in my business system is the idea is that you need to align the 3 Ps, purpose, people, and processes in your business to have an optimized business. So you need your purpose, you need to understand where you're going and why you exist. And then your people in your business need to be able to serve that purpose. And they need processes or systems to serve the people so they can serve the business. But the key to the whole thing and what underlies the whole situation is understanding your assets. Now, you're a financial guy. You get lists of assets all the time and probably look at them and try and identify what is the most important asset in any business, or the most undervalued or overvalued assets. But I think we missed the key in the whole thing is that you, as the business owner or the leader of your business, are absolutely the number one asset in your business. So it's really important to recognize that and consistently invest in yourself. You will be the limiting factor on growth and success for your business. So for me, like I said, in 2009, we started the farm, and I had put together a business plan. I did take a small business and entrepreneurship class in university. It was the one class that I feel like gave me a lot of value out of the 4 or 5 years or whatever I spent in university. And it was great. So I was able to put together a business plan, and I did. And in that, I had wrote, my goal was to get to 10,000 acres as fast as possible. At the point in time, it was really just a kind of a pride-driven thing. I didn't understand fully the economies of scale or anything else that I would be taking advantage of. I just knew that if I got there, I'd probably be able to drive nicer equipment than if I remained smaller. So, the power of writing down having a goal and writing them down, it's a powerful thing. I'm now very careful about what I write down as goals because they have to come to fruition. But anyways, we did get there in a lot faster period of time than I thought. And the destination was not what I thought it would be. It was cool and it was great. And we were able to drive a little nicer machinery, but I was completely overwhelmed by the responsibilities that came with that. The ability to manage people, probably first and foremost. I could do the work and figure out all those things on the go. But when you want to expand your business, I don't know about you or anybody else listening, but for me, I'm afflicted by this deal where I only have 24 hours in a day, no matter what I do. So if I want to produce more, I'm going to have to leverage other people to be able to do that. And I did not have those skills at all. So I got there and started feeling things that I didn't know what they were at that point in time, but a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And I just thought that was part of being a successful businessman. You see the movies or hear stories about it, and that's just all part of it. So I kind of embraced it. I thought it was a good thing, but it became too much to handle, frankly. I started getting hit by some pretty debilitating anxiety, and really to the point that I had to investigate what the heck was going on and learn about that. So that was probably 3 years ago, and it's been a great journey ever since then, frankly. That forced me to start looking into my mind and how I worked and really get to understand myself better. And I recognized most certainly that I was a limiting factor on what I wanted to happen in my family, in my business. And I needed to grow myself if I wanted to take the people around me where I wanted to take them, not only take myself there as well. So
it sounds like you had kind of a rock bottom process at some point there where you realized things were unmanageable and you needed to go a different direction. Is that fair?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And, my rock bottom, it wasn't as bad as some people's rock bottom, but I mean, curled up on the couch, like scared to live life. It was pretty ugly. And I didn't know what was going on. And I did gain a healthy respect for mental health issues and those types of things because they are real and they're dangerous for sure. So I gained a bit of an understanding of all that. So it was rock bottom for sure. I'm grateful that it was a manageable rock bottom and that I've come out of it. And it's been all uphill ever since then for sure. Just part of the learning journey of life. So, but that was really the catalyst to turn this thing around.
I don't meet anybody that says they have enough good what-be meetings. Most of us don't spend enough time working on the business. At ranching.fyi, we've developed the Meet Right course to help you be effective with daily meetings, weekly meetings, and quarterly and annual strategic meetings. Look up ranching.fyi, Meet Right. Okay, give us a little more picture, though. At farming 10,000 acres, how many people did you have working for you? Give us a little bit of an idea of the scope and scale. How many hours were you putting in? What was this like?
Well, obviously very seasonal. And in Saskatchewan, the seasons are really short. You don't have to go very far south and the seasons lengthen quite a bit. But it's like, running the 400 meters in May. You just go as hard as you can until you can't possibly go anymore. So when you ask how many hours were we were working all of them, and you just kind of pass out whenever or wherever you can, and then you go ahead again the next day. And that was fine. I was young. I could handle the physical part of it, I think, but it was definitely managing people that was probably the more stressful part. And when you don't know how to manage people well, they will cost you more time than they'll save you. And I've always been lucky to have pretty good to really good people around me. I've never had anybody on the farm that was really bad and took us backwards, but I was managing generally 2 guys full time. And then in season, it would, we'd grow the crew to 4, 5, 6, depending on the time of the season or what exactly our needs were at that particular time. So not a huge crew, but a real diverse set of activities going on, and didn't understand how to delegate properly, and it really just led to a lot of stress.
Yeah, excellent. All right. So then the transformation starts to happen. Where does that start? How does that progress?
It really started by understanding how my mind works and how all of our minds work, and just becoming more mindful of where I was at, really day by day, minute by minute, because I had gone into that hole, is kind of what I call it, that dark place, that hole. And when you go in there deep enough, you can't really get yourself back out. You need somebody to pull you out, really. And that's the dangerous part of that whole deal. So the main driver is to make sure that you don't go back in that hole. Well, how can you do that? You got to be very aware of where you're at all the time. So that's been a big thing. It's mindfulness. There's 4 sort of pillars, I think, of personal growth: physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And the emotional kind of fits with the mental a little bit, but I think that they are separate. And really, it's at that point in time, I had a lot of mental skills. I had pretty good physical capability. Spiritually, I was in a reasonably good spot, but I was not able to handle my emotions very well and understand the place that they had in where I was on a day-to-day basis. So I think that probably was the key number 1, was understanding the emotional side of things and being able to control my emotions on a day-to-day basis, and really being diligent about where my mind was at all times. So of those 4 pillars, you're only as good as your weakest link. So you'll top out and you'll hit a ceiling, and you got to determine which one of those is holding you back. So most recently, I think it was my physical abilities that were holding me back, which is why I got involved with the personal trainer, and that has now turned around. So.
Right. And you look fantastic. I'm going to say you're not quite a middle-aged guy, but you're in shape. You don't look like the average farmer.
Well, thank you. And I guess I used to think that I was a little better than average before, and that was good enough. But it really wasn't, and it's still not necessarily at all about how I look. It's about how I feel, and that has been a big deal. I remember, this is probably 5 years ago, so I was maybe like 36 or 7 years old. We were driving through Nebraska on a summer road trip, and it was like well over 100 degrees in Fahrenheit. I can't do the conversion very well, but I was driving with my seat heater on because my back was bothering me so much. I'd had a lot of lower back and hip issues. And when you're doing that at that age, it's like, man, this is going to be a long go. So it was enough of that. A few years of that, and I had to make some changes, and that's been the biggest thing, is how I feel. So now all those aches and pains and stuff have gone away. I just feel like I'm 25 again.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one piece I think I see too many people, and not just in our industry, right? In both of our countries, right? We live too well. We eat too well. Things are too easy. And it's amazing. I'm very interested in fitness and athletics and that sort of thing. And when I see people head down that road, it's like, oh, this is going to be so good. You are going to love how it works. So it's a big improvement. Good. And just like the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, those are all, like you say, those are pillars of our own well-being. And if we neglect any of those, we aren't able to get to where we need to be. So
100%. Yep.
If your back's always bothering you and it's keeping you from sleeping right, then that just has a whole bunch of other impacts, right?
Right. And you think that, well, that's just a physical malady, but that affects you a lot. When you get out of your truck every time and you kind of shuffle along till things loosen up, that's frustrating. And so now mentally you start breaking down a little bit, and emotionally you get frustrated, and it affects everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Right. All right. So keep going. This is really good. So let's build out some of these other pillars and how you kind of progressed along.
Well, I guess I would say that, we are the sum of our habits, right? And we are wired to run on habits as much as possible. We want to be on autopilot. That's how our brain is set up, so that we can save our real serious brain power for doing high complex tasks. That's what makes us who we are. So I don't think that we realize how much we do unconsciously in a day. So really it became about starting to recognize what my habits were and being able to change them. And once I started recognizing my habits, and you can recognize the triggers, and that's all great, and you can't eliminate a bad habit, right? You have to replace it with something better. So I started being really mindful about those things and recognizing my poor habits, and I had a good idea of the good habits that I wanted to replace them with. I was having a heck of a hard time doing that on a consistent basis. And I came up with, I didn't come up with the idea, but the idea came across of keystone habits. And for me, it was really turning my mornings around. That created the time to be able to stack on those other little habits that really has turned my life around and given me the consistency, I guess, and so many of these good habits to be able to work on myself physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally every morning before the rest of the world wakes up. So getting up early before the world hits you in the face, that has been probably the one key that has allowed me to stack on all of these other good habits on top of that.
Yeah, so you kind of own the day right from the get-go instead of getting up in reaction mode.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Proactive versus reactive. You get wins first thing in the day. I get up and I'll drink a big glass of water and then do either some push-ups or a plank or something to get my body moving. You start the day 2-0 before you're 10 minutes in. That's good stuff.
Yeah, love it. And then right after that, I always have to pee because that's just part of the age. Big glass of water right off, like I got a plan for that. So very good. Thank you for listening. We're going to conclude part 1 of this interview today and continue next week. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for tuning into the Ranchonomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.